Blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we're in Malachi, which is the last book of the Old Testament. Now, we're not finished with the Old Testament because tomorrow we're going to jump back and we're going to pick up a couple of chapters that we have not finished. But just know that we're very close to getting into the New Testament. So I know some of y'all are very anxious to get into the New Testament, but let's not be too anxious because there's so much good in the Old Testament. So anyway, right off the bat, chapter 1 in Malachi, you hear this, or maybe you haven't, but I think most of you probably heard this once or twice, where God says, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. And that's a stumbling block for a lot of people who think, God is nothing but love, and how could God hate something that he creates, and blah blah blah. Well, I came across a teaching about a year ago that really really cleared this up. It really gave me an understanding of something that I had no understanding of. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was. We have to look at this in context of when it was written or when God said these things. So in the Near East, a person would use the word love in his will to designate a person that he had chosen to inherit his estate. He would use the word hate to mean a legal rejection of any rival claim to his will. So you could will all your property to one child and say, I loved Jacob, but Esau I hated. Esau has no claim to my estate. He's been rejected. So it's language used kind of in a different way, if you will. Just like in the 1920s, if you said or you made mention that somebody was gay, it meant that they were happy and having a good time. If you mention that somebody's gay in today's current culture, it doesn't mean the same thing. So taking a word and fitting it into the context with which it's used is huge. And here, I have loved Jacob, but Esau I hated. That really kind of puts a different spin on it, a different context, if you will. And it's really confirmed because at the end of verse 3, and we're talking about chapter 1, verse 2 and 3, where it says this. In verse 3 it says, God was talking and appointed his inheritance for the jackals of the wilderness. He's basically saying, Esau I have hated, which means you don't get any inheritance. And then at the end of this verse it says, and appointed him his inheritance for the jackals of the wilderness, meaning you'll get no inheritance. So I hope that really, that's a question that can really be a stumbling block to us. So I hope this cleared that up for you as we move on. And then chapter 2, I really love what it says about the Levites because you know me, I've got this thing how cops and Levites kind of line up together. I'm just going to read chapter 2 verses 4 through 6 to you. I'm going to read the whole thing. And you will know that I have sent you this warning so that my covenant with Levi may continue. Now he's talking to the priest here because the priests have not done their priestly duties. They're not acting in accordance with what God expects. And this is kind of the final straw. This is why Malachi is the last book in the Bible. God just kind of says, you know what? I'm done with you guys for a little while. I'm going to take a break because I'm really upset with y'all. But he's talking about the priest. He said, the priest, man, y'all are not doing right. But the tribe of Levi is. And that's why he says, and you will know that I have sent you this warning so that my covenant with Levi may continue, says the Lord Almighty. My covenant with him, a covenant of life and peace, and I gave them to him. This call for reverence, and he revered me and stood in awe of my name. True instruction was in his mouth, and nothing false was found on his lips. He walked with me in peace and uprightness and turned many from sin. I pray that that is a description of law enforcement today. We know that, man, if you do something wrong, it is brought to the forefront now. It's put on the news, maybe even the national news. And, you can't have a close to 1 million law enforcement officers in the United States without somebody doing something wrong every day. Somebody's going to screw up. Used to, we didn't hear about it. Now, if an officer screws up, we hear about it, man. But that does not take away from the fact that the vast majority are doing the right thing. And a small percentage of that vast majority are Christians. And a small percentage of you guys have been called to this ministry of law enforcement. And I think this verse fits for you perfectly. And then chapters 3 and 4 close out the book. It goes on to describe the priests and the Israelites saying, what did we do wrong? We haven't done anything wrong. And God continuously, 4 or 5 examples of saying, oh, you don't think you did wrong? How about this? God says, you don't think you've robbed me? How about the tithes and the offerings? You don't think you... So anyway, it gets really heavily in these 2 chapters of we didn't do anything, and God saying, yeah, I'm going to call you out on that when you did do something wrong. God closes the doors to the temple. Or he says, I wish I would just close the doors to the temple and not come in here anymore. Just leave me alone. When this chapter ends, there's a 400-year period of silence where God doesn't speak to the Israelites. He literally closes the doors until Jesus comes. And it kind of alludes to that at the very end. So today, Malachi, great read. Tomorrow we're going to be in 1 Chronicles, and we're going to just read chapters 1 and 2. Hope you read that and come back here. Let's see what kind of law enforcement takeaway we can get. Until then, be safe.